Hi, welcome to the overview course on Power BI, where you're going to be answering critical business questions with data and visualization. This is going to be a little bit of a different course because in each step, I want to empower you to be able to answer questions with Power BI. So the first thing we're going to do in this short video is we're going to make sure that you can load data into Power BI and get you a little bit familiar with the interface of Power BI. So if you haven't downloaded Power BI, make sure that you have Power BI Desktop on your machine before we get started. Once you have that, we're going to open Power BI by clicking the icon. And it's going to give us some options once the window opens. Now, when this window opens, we have a couple options. We can see recent news from Power BI blog and the forums. They can give us some training videos. And on the left side here, we have options such as loading data, seeing recent files. And this extension, PBIX, is a Power BI workbook file extension. So we can open reports from here also. But since this video is all about getting data into Power BI, let's start with that. Let's click the Get Data icon. And this is going to give us some options here. So for this course, we're going to be dealing with a lot of Excel and CSV files. And for this first course, I want you to get familiar with loading a CSV file into Power BI. Now, it seems kind of complicated, but it's quite easy. We know we have the Get Data window open. We move down to Text or CSV. Click that. Now, you should know where your file is. For this first option, we're going to be looking at a Facebook campaign. So let's click that. It's going to connect to the data source and load into Power BI. Now we have a window, a preview window, and it shows us the first 200 rows in our data set. We have an option to load it in directly, edit it, or cancel. So let's transform the data first or edit the data before we load it, just to get a look at everything. So when you click Transform Data, it opens the Edit Queries menu. And this is your kind of section where you're able to model and cleanse the data. We have all our columns here. We can change the data type just by double clicking it, and we'll do a lot of this in the next couple of videos. And then after this, we're going to load our data back into Power BI. So you're going to navigate up to where it says Close and Apply. Hit Close and Apply. And then we're going to see our data populate all those columns on the right section where it says Fields. So we can see all the columns we have. We can see these icons that indicate this is a number. And we can see this icon here, which indicates it's a date. We have our visualization pane where we can change visualizations. We're going to spend a lot of time on that. Even though we see a lot of options here, as you go through this course, it's going to be quite easy. Let me direct your attention back over to the left side where we have these three icons here. And if you hover over, this is our report view. If we click this is our data view, which allows us to go back in and see all our data. We can also do some changes here. And then we have our table or model view. And we only have one table in, but eventually we're going to build data models with multiple tables that load in and allow us to transform our data. If you ever wanted to get back and load more data in, because we did that directly from the window, there is a Get Data option here in your top ribbon under the Home tab. And we can also get data here. And we're not limited to Excel or CSV files, which we're going to spend a lot of time in this course on that, but we're also going to load in some other types of data. And if we hit more, you can see all the certified data connectors and data sources with Power BI. So there's a whole host of different connectors and different data inputs that we can put in. All right, so now that you're familiar with how to get data in Power BI, let's move on to modeling and making your first graph. Welcome back. I hope you're feeling a little bit more confident about getting data into Power BI and not feeling so intimidated by this great tool, because by the end of this course, you're going to be really productive in answering business questions with ease using Power BI. So first, I want to get a little bit more familiar with your interface. So let's take a look at this. We know already that you're a little bit familiar with the Get Data tab, and as we did in the previous video, we loaded Excel in by getting data. We have recent sources, which you saw before, which is our recent sources that we loaded in the Power BI. Or we have inner data, which we can actually type in data or paste data in. We're going to be using a little bit of that in this course, so we can cancel out of that because we're not using it. We have our refresh icon, which allows us to refresh a data set that may have been updated outside of Power BI. We have our new page, which allows us to create a new page or new tab like you may be familiar with in Excel. So just by clicking that or the plus sign at the bottom, you're able to create a new tab, and you can delete that quite easily by pressing the X. The new visual icon allows you to load the visual into Power BI, and you can get rid of that visual there. We can also load the visual in from the visualization pane here. This is a little bit of an advanced feature where you can ask questions to your data set. We can add text box, like if we want to add a title or an information box. We can add images, shapes. We can also add custom visuals, which is a great thing about Power BI because visuals are updated all the time. You can switch themes, which are color themes, and we're going to do a little bit of that in our styling video. Then we can create new calculations, what is called a measure in Power BI. We can create new columns, and then we can also use some of the quick measures that are already loaded into Power BI. As you see here, it allows us to make the calculation very quickly. And then we have publish, which allows us to publish our report into Power BI Cloud Service. If you come to the right, we have filters, which we can add a filter to our page. So say you want to filter on a date or a certain value in a column, we can filter that on all pages also. We have our visualization pane where you're able to add different visuals. And we have our fields pane, which we have all our columns. So let's get a little bit more familiar with that just by creating a visual and playing around with that a little bit more. So let's select one of our columns here, and I'm going to select your ad group. And when you select a column, it's going to populate onto your screen, and the default is a table. So I have my add group column here, and I can go over and click one of the aggregated measures here or values, and maybe I want to see the number of impressions I have for each ad group. So I would click impressions, and we can see with that information loaded there. And now we can circle over to the visual pane and see that the table is selected. But you can easily change this visual just by clicking any others. So now we have a quick bar graph. We have a stacked chart, but we have a pie chart, which is, you can see the difference here. We have a donut chart. We can have a funnel. We can even have this waterfall chart. So let's go back up to our bar chart. And I want to make you a little bit more familiar with the section here under the visualization pane. As you see, we know we clicked the add group, which we can see indicated by the check mark. We know we also added our impressions, which is also indicated by the check mark. And on your visual, you know you have an X and Y axis. And we can also see that your add group is in your axis here. And the value that you're using is impressions. We can also see we have tooltips that we can add here, and we'll talk about that in the next video, the next coming videos, where you can add information to this tooltip that you can see highlighted here. And we have cross drill throughs, and we'll talk about that in a little bit later videos. If you click this format, which looks like a paintbrush roller, we're also able to style our visualization with a lot of different options here. And just to give you an indication, we can click colors and easily change a color. Well, let's change that to purple. We can add data labels by just clicking on and off, and you can see the data labels populated there. The next one is your analytics options, and here we can add a constant line, and depending on the visualization, you'll have a lot more options. So this is a little playground for you to change the visualization and have a little bit of fun here. However, I have a challenge for you. I would like to know which ad group we have spent the most money on. And remember, we're going to circle back over to your field section, and we know I have the impressions selected. We know I have ad groups selected. So you should be able to change that with a simple selection. So I would like to know which ad group we spent the most money on. So have fun with this visualization and the homework question. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Hi, welcome back to the tutorial on Power BI. I hope you're feeling more confidence in building your knowledge on how to build visualizations and answer business questions in Power BI. In the last video, we created a bar chart. We explored the visualization pane, where we saw that we added an ad group to the axis and impressions to values, and we changed the color by highlighting the format icon and going to colors and changing the colors. And we also added data labels. The homework challenge was to tell me which ad group that we spend the most money on. So we know that we can change what value is in the value part of this axis. So to do that, we want to change impressions into spend. But let's keep this visualization and make a duplicate of it first. So simply highlight the visualization, press Control C, then press Control V. Now that we have this visualization built, we're going to pull in and replace impressions with spent. So what you're going to do is pull that over, and sometime it'll double. Just get rid of impressions, and now we have how much we have spent per ad group. To make this a little clearer, let's go back to our format, change the color, and since this is money, maybe we'll change it to a dark green. Now we can see in our axis, we have our ad group and we have the value spent. Also, if we navigate to the field section, you can see ad group is selected and spent is selected. So we know we spent dollars, so I would love to see a dollar sign next to these labels. To do this, we go back to the fields, highlight it, move up to modeling, which is on the top ribbon, move over to the format section, and we can click the dollar sign for currency format. When you click that arrow, you'll have some options to what kind of currency. We want to know dollars. When we click that, you can see now we have the amount spent. So which ad group did we spend the most on? Ad group D. That answers your business question on which ad group did we spend the most money on. Now I want to talk a little bit more about drilling in Power BI. So let's start a new sheet, and if you remember how to do this, you can simply go down to the bottom plus or go to the home section and add a new page. Let's use this plus. So let's create a visualization with dates and talk about hierarchies and drilling. So we move back over to our field section and click dates. And since we're talking about money, let's also bring in spent. As you can see, we have a bar chart and we have the years. If we move over to our fields, we can see that we have a hierarchy. We have date, year, quarter, month. And what this is we're aggregated at the year, but we can also drill down into different levels. So to talk a little bit more about drilling, we want to be able to drill down from year, quarter, month to the day. There are a couple ways to do that. We can use the visualization by simply clicking it to drill down. And to set this up, you would go to the Drills tab. So from Home to the Drills tab, and then you would click Drill Down. And when you see that, you see this black arrow highlighted. So all I have to do is simply click into the visualization, and it drills down from year to quarter, quarter to month, and then month to day. And if I want to go back up a level, I simply click the up arrow, up arrow, up arrow. And that's a type of drilling we can do in Power BI. So if I unclick that, we also have a double arrow, and it says go to the next level in the hierarchy. We know that the next level from this is quarters. So this allows you to do the same thing, but from each level. So let's go back up, and drill up until we get to the same level. The next option gives us the option to expand all down one level in the hierarchy. And by expanding, we keep what we already have. So if we have 2016 and we expand it to the next level, we should be able to see everything, but at a lower level of granularity. So if I click this, we can see that you have all your years and all your quarters. If you click the hierarchy, expand the hierarchy again, you get the same options. And we can always go back up into our hierarchy. We can also do the same thing with the show next level and expand next level, and you can see that those icons are similar. Another type of drilling is to be able to click this visualization and see the records. So if I click see records and then I click into the visual, it will take me to the actual data. I go back, and if I want to deselect that option, I just take it off. So those are really great advanced ways of drilling. Now, for your homework question, I would like to know how much money we spent in March of 2016 and March of 2017. See you in the next video. Hi, welcome back. So in the last video, we looked at hierarchies. And in this video, we're going to create our own hierarchy. And we're going to talk about aggregations. But first, let's answer your homework question. The challenge was to know how much we spent in March 2016 and in March 2017. So since you've gotten a little familiar with hierarchies, we can answer the question that way. Let's quickly review that we can initiate hierarchies by clicking the drill and data option at the top and choosing drill down or expand or show next level or see records. Or we can also come down and do this at the visualization pane on the actual visualization. So I'm going to click the drill down button, which allows me to drill down, and it will highlight up at the top if you have that selected, and it will also highlight on this. So let's start with 2016, and I know all I have to do is click the bar. I know March is in Q1. And now I have March here, but this is quite difficult to see. So to make this clearer, let's add data labels. And as we practiced before, we can go over to the visualization pane, click the paintbrush, go down to data labels, click on, and let's increase that size to 16, where we can see it very clearly. Now we have the amount of money that we spent in March, which is $1,644.58. Let's go back up in our hierarchy to years so we can look at 2017. And instead of drilling down, I'm going to expand. And remember, expand allows you to keep each stage in your hierarchy or each level in your hierarchy. So I'm going to click down. It gives us all of the quarters and all of the years because that's the next stage in our hierarchy. Let's click expand again, and then we have everything. And to make your visualization easier to see, you can drag it out. Now that we see that we spent $5,685,099 in March 2017, and we spent in March 2016 was February. Let's go to March, 1.6K or $1,644.58. So it's about 7.5 or 7.9 or somewhere around there we spent for those two particular months in 2017 and 2018. So let's bring our hierarchy back to 2016 and 2017. Now, what happens if you just go down one level? If you go down one level, we can see Q1, Q2, and Q3 and Q4 4. But which year does that belong to? It belongs to both. So we know if we go down another level, we're going to get to the month. And we know we spent about $7.5 or $7.9 thousand in March. So if by using the option that go down a level, this aggregates all of the years because it ignores the previous level in the hierarchy. All right. Very important to know. So so we have been looking at totals, and total is a sum. But what about if you wanted to know the average that we spent and not the total? The average, maybe the average per quarter. If we go over to your fields section, we can see that we have our hierarchy here on the axis, and in the values we have spent. So we know we're summing the spent, but what if we want to change from sum to average? We would highlight values, click it, and then we can see all the different aggregations. So if I click average, we can see the average per quarter, or the average for that month. That is a different way of aggregating your data. So now let's create our own hierarchy. Maybe your boss wants to be able to drill down in your campaigns and wants to drill down from campaign to add group to add manager. So we need to create a hierarchy. Very easy to do. You move over to your fields section and go to the top, what you want to be the first part of your hierarchy, which is campaign. So we right click campaign and we have an option for new hierarchy. Click new hierarchy and we can see that there is a new field that says campaign hierarchy. And in that, you can see that indentation is campaign. The next thing you want to bring in is your add group. So click add group with the left mouse button, bring it down to campaign hierarchy and drop it in. And now you have 2 points in your hierarchy, 2 levels. The last level we need is our add manager. So we left click that, bring it down to campaign hierarchy, drop it in. Now that we have a campaign hierarchy, let's visualize this. We can click campaign hierarchy, which brings all of ours in the default table. But I would like to see this as a pivot table. So we can click matrix, which is equivalent to a pivot table. Click matrix, and now your data is moved up to the highest hierarchy. So if we wanted to see how that hierarchy is set up, we would click expand one level so we can see everything and preserve each level in the hierarchy. E and D are in campaign 1, and add group B is in campaign 3, and add group A is in campaign 3. If I go down and expand one more level, I can see the actual add managers in each one of these campaigns. Now, your boss may come to you and say, hey, I want this to be changed. I would like the ad manager to be at the top of the hierarchy. So let's get rid of this visualization and go back over to your fields, take ad manager, and we want to move him up the hierarchy. The easiest way to do that is exactly as imagined. Just click Ad Manager, move them above Campaign in your hierarchy, and now they are at the top of your campaign. Let's click Campaign. We have our default visualization, which is a table. Let's click Matrix. Now the first part of that hierarchy is the Ad Manager. And I'm going to bring in Spend to see how much money each one of them have generated. Now your task is to tell me how many ad groups has each one of these ad managers managed and the average spend per ad group. See you in the next video. Welcome back. In this section of the course, we're going to talk about filters and slicers. And this is a great way to subset and alter your data on the fly. However, first, let's dive in and answer the previous homework question. So we built a hierarchy, and our hierarchy was a campaign hierarchy that started with the ad manager, went to the next level with campaign, and ad group. So to answer that question, let's start by pulling in our hierarchy again. So we just click Campaign Hierarchy. It brings it into a regular table. We know we want to look at this maybe to start off in a pivot table. So click Matrix. Now we have the level of Ad Manager. The homework question was, how many ad groups did each manager manage, and what was the average spend also? So we can click spend because we know this is the measure that we want to evaluate. Now we have spend, but we know the default aggregation of the value that we bring in is sum. So by clicking the down arrow in the value section, we can see that it is aggregated at sum. But we want to know the average, so we move down to average. And as you see here, we also have different levels of aggregation. So if we click average, now we know one part of our question, the average spend per manager. The next question we want to know is how many ad groups did each manager have? So of course we can look at the hierarchy and we can see that the ad group is there, but we don't have a count. Now we can see the name of the ad group. However, this ad group has appeared multiple times in our data. So let's go over and we can take a look by clicking the data icon or the table icon, and we can see that this ad group was used multiple times throughout our data from 2005 onward. So let's click back over to our report view. We have our hierarchy. Now we want to count how many times we've seen this ad group in our data set. So we know we're going to evaluate ad group. So I have that visualization. I'm going to pull ad group in values, and we can see it says first. That does not answer our question, right? We want to know not first, and if we click the down arrow, and we don't want to know last, we don't want to know count distinct, we want to know every time that has appeared. So let's click count. And now we can go back up, and we can go up one more level. And now we can see count of ad group for those managers. And that answers the homework question. In this video, I want to talk about filters. So move over, and we have a new section here in Power BI, which is the Filters Pane. And every value or dimension that you have used in your visualization appears in this Filters pane. If we click into any of these, we can filter the visual. So in this section, we have filter visual. In this section, we can filter on the whole page. And then we can add a filter across all pages in our report. So let's explore. If you click the down arrow, we can just limit all the data to just Jess. So let's click that Ad Manager, and we can see it changes the visual in that data. If we wanted to limit the whole page by Jess, we would need to bring in the Ad Manager into this section. So drag and drop it, and we just want to see Jess, and we should see both of these visuals change to reflect only what Jess used. And you can see it altered. Another way we can filter is by using the slicer. I'm highlighting the slicer in the visual pane. I'm going to clear my selection by just clicking a white spot to bring that in. And then I'm going to highlight slicer. And then I'm going to go back up to Ad Manager. And now I have a slicer. If I click Jess, it also goes back and provides a filter on the whole page. This is another way to give your user a way to filter the data based on the slicer. You are not limited to just one slicer. You can have multiple slicers on a page. So let's copy and paste. And now we have two Ad Manager slicers, but I'm going to replace this one with campaign. So highlight campaign, drag it over, and now you have campaign. So I can click campaign 1, which will slice everything, even the other slicer. Campaign 2 and campaign 3. Also, using the date slicer gives us a lot more options. Now, we can also change this slicer from a drop down. We can also change this slicer from a list to a drop down by clicking the arrow. We can also clear what the slicer is selecting by clicking the clear selection erase icon. If we bring in a date slicer, we have even more options. So I'm going to click the white part of the report or empty space. I'm going to click slicer, and I'm going to choose date. Your default structure is a slider with the date because it goes from one numeric value to the other. So we can see this spans from the 1st of 2015 to July 24th, 2017. And I can drag and change my data just to reflect January 4th to July 24th in the year 2017. And we can see that the data changes. I can also change the style of this from between to before, which gives us one option, to after, which gives us a start option, to a list, which will be very long, to a drop down, which we have seen before, or we can even go relative. So we can look at the last 1 year or month or week or day. So we can change our data quite a bit with this option. And remember, we can clear everything by just clicking the No Option Applied. So the default for all your slicers, if you use a number, so if I bring in another slicer and I bring in our total spend, we will also have a slicer. So you can see how the data changes based on your numeric spend. This is a good way to filter and change your data. There are a lot of options there. For this section, you have no homework. I want you to spend some time playing around with slicers, hierarchies, and your visuals. I'll see you in the next video. Hi, welcome back to the course. I hope you are feeling excited and enjoying the course. You should be proud that you're able to get data into Power BI, analyze your data, create slicers and hierarchies. And this is a good opportunity for us to take a slight break from analyzing our data and explore styling our visuals. So let's quickly create a visual using age as our axis and total conversions as our value. So if we click age, we know the default visualization is going to be a table. And then if we click total conversions, it will populate into the table. We can change that to a clustered column chart, and we have our visual there. If we look at the fields, we can see our age is on the axis, value is total conversions. However, we can also add a legend to this visual, which we can split this visual by another dimension. So let's bring in gender. So if we bring in gender to our legend, we can see that we have a clustered column chart. Let's add data labels by clicking the format, highlighting the toggle and clicking it on. We can style those labels by changing the color, the display units. Now this is in hundreds, but if this was a larger number, we could change it to one of the larger numbers. Let's leave it on auto for now. We could add decimal places and control those decimal places. We can change the orientation from horizontal to vertical. Let's put it back. We can change the position. Right now it's outside of the end of our bar chart, but we can put it inside the center. We can put it outside the center. We can change overflow text. And overflow text allow if your column is very tall and it doesn't allow the label to go in, it will move this label to the inside. And let me show you how that works. So if I click overflow text and I move this down, you can see 737 goes inside. You can also customize each of the label series by just clicking customize. And right now it shows female. You could change female or male to another color. And you can also add the same options by changing the size. And click off customize. And I'm just going to bring this back up. We can go back to the format option, and we know we have our numbers here, so we might not want to have the y-axis here. So I can turn the y-axis off, and it makes a cleaner chart. We can look at the plot area where we can add transparencies. We can, if we have a background, or we can add an image to that, and we'll do a little bit of that later in the course. We can change our data colors. We have orange for female and a dark greenish blue for male. Maybe we can change that to another color. You might even want to change that to a gray, and it changes on the fly. We can also change our colors using the theme option. So if I go back up to our home tab, navigate to switch themes, and we can also change our themes by choosing the different one. As you can see, this one still stays gray because we said we wanted it to be gray. But if we created another chart with the same, so if we went back and we did age and we did gender, first with our total conversions, and then we turn that into a clustered chart, and then we brought in gender as our legend. If we change the theme, it will change both of those as opposed to just changing the one we changed explicitly. We can also style the legend. Let's get rid of the one here, and let's just focus our attention on this and make it a little bit bigger. Maybe that legend is not exactly what you want, so we can move over and click our format and choose legend, and we can decide where to put our legend. So we can put it at the top center. We can also make it bigger, and we can style the font family. And if you see there's an icon here and it says a visual is responsive, and if you change the size, it will give you this error. So if you can see, because it's responsive, it will change for you. So that's what that is telling you. Let's go back to the Format tab, take off Legend, make it smaller. Let's make it a 10. And you can see that that error goes away. Okay, let's quickly create another chart. We can create a pie chart. So maybe we create a pie chart of female and male and total conversion. So we just use the gender, and then we get a default table, bring in total conversions, and let's change that to a pie chart or a donut chart. And when we use the pie chart or donut chart, we have more options for our labels. So if I click this and I click our labels, you can see we have detail labels. So if we click the down arrow, we see right now the label is a category. However, we can show the data value, which is just a number, We can show the percent total. We can show the category and the data, but let's use all our details. And now we can get the percent, the value, and our category. Let's make that a little bit bigger, just so we can see it a little bit better. So we can go down to labels and we can make it a little bit bigger. I hope that helps you with styling. For your homework, I would like to know, what is the percent of females who converted in campaign 1? Thank you. Hi, welcome back. I hope you were able to tackle the homework question. So let's get started and dive into it. We wanted to know, out of our conversions for campaign 1, what were the percentage of females for campaign 1. We have a pie chart here, which is not filtered, which has the total amount of conversions for male and female. We can find our answer in one way by creating a slicer, going up to the visualization, click slicer, choosing campaign, and filtering on campaign 1. And now we have the percent of females who converted for campaign 1. We can also create a pivot chart. So go to the visualization, choose pivot chart or matrix, click campaign, which is going to be our rows, total conversions as our value, and then for our columns, we can choose gender. Now, this value is not in a percentage, and we would have to take some time to calculate it if we wanted column 875 over 1618. However, if we go back to value and we click the down caret icon and we move our mouse down to show value as, and this is very similar to a pivot chart in Excel, we want the percent of row total because our campaign 1, 2, and 3 are rows. So now we can see we get the same answer for females in campaign 1. We'll explore this a little bit more in later tutorials, later videos. But now I want to talk more about how we do calculations in Power BI. And the first thing we're going to tackle is a calculated column. So let's take a look at our data by clicking the data icon, which is a table on the left side. We know that we have total conversions, and we can see those total conversions here. And we also have an approved conversion, so we're going to deal with this a little later. But let's look at total conversion, and then we have a sale amount. So our sale amount is the same because hypothetically in this data set we're selling the same item. So, but we don't have is the total sale amount, which would be the conversions times the sale amount. We can easily get that amount by multiplying these two. So let's go back over to your report by clicking the report icon, and let's create a new page by clicking the plus sign. And we're going to create a new calculated column. So there's a couple ways to create a column. If you go from the Home tab over to the far right, we can see New Column. We can also right-click our table on the right, and we can also create a new column from there. Let's create a new column from the Home ribbon by clicking New Column. It's going to open up a formula bar. And we can see from the formula bar that we have equals, very similar to what you would see in Excel. So first, let's name our new column. So we change that to our name. We're going to call it Total Sales. Now we can multiply the column that we want, which we know we want to multiply total conversions. So we can start typing T, and let's see what happens. As you see, we can see our table in the column that we're interested in. And this is what we want to do, multiply these two columns. So let's use total conversion, and we can make the times symbol. And what do we want to multiply that by? The sale amount. So we know sale amount starts with an S. And if we just type the S, we can see that it brings up all the columns with that letter. So I'm going to double click sale amount. And now our formula is complete. So I'm going to click the commit icon, which is a check mark. And you will see this new column populated in your fields menu. And if you look at the different symbols, we know that we have an aggregation symbol here for our column, but because we know it's a number. We know we have this calendar, which represents a date. We know we have this for our hierarchy that we created. But let's take a look at this. It's a table with a highlighted column. This is the icon for a calculated column. So we would like to see that and see what our total sales were over time. So I'm going to create a visual using date as my axis and total sales as my value. We can see based on the theme that we have our values there. I'm going to go back by clicking the theme to the default theme, and I'm going to choose, instead of a bar chart, a line chart. And we can see our sales peaked in 2016, but I can also drill down into our hierarchy by expanding to a new level. And then we can see our sales per quarter, per month, and even per day. I'm going to expand this out a bit and go up one level. So there is our total sales from a calculated column. Now, of course, I would like this to be in dollars. I can click the calculated column from the fields menu and move back to our modeling tab at the top. Once I highlight that, I can change that to a currency format. I'm going to choose the symbol for United States dollar. And we can see in the tooltip our new total sales line chart. I would like to know, for your homework, which ad manager had the highest day total sales amount. See you in the next video. Hi, welcome back to the course. we're going to start taking a deeper dive into calculated measures and calculated columns. But first, let's answer your homework question. The question was, which ad manager has the highest daily sales? So we can answer this in multiple ways in Power BI. Right now we have a line graph that's at the month hierarchy. We could, and this is aggregated across all ad managers, we can break this line up by adding ad manager to the legend. So let's pull ad manager to the legend. Then we have 3 lines. However, we're at the month level, not the daily level. So let's pull down daily level. Wow, it's very complicated. But we know, we can see from this line that the highest day sales were sometime in 2015. If we use the tooltip to highlight, we can see it was around this area. It's still difficult for me to see. And it's very important to be able to isolate the exact day. So we can use a slicer by clicking the slicer in the visualization pane and then clicking date, and then just looking at maybe let's say 2015 by moving over the slider bar to make sure we only have 2015. Now we can see things a little bit better, and we can still further isolate that period by moving our slider over more. And now we can see that Tina had the highest daily sales on November 26th. That's one way to get the answer. We can also get the answer. Let's get rid of this slicer and let's go and create a table by clicking the table. And we want to know the total daily sales, the maximum total daily sales for our ad managers. So we know ad manager is one of the dimensions we're concerned with. Total sales is also on our mind, and then the date. So we can see our, and I hit total conversions, so let me click that off by unclicking it and clicking total sales. And there's our total sales amount. Now, of course we can sort it, but it still we can see who has the highest amount there just by sorting for the highest daily sale. So by clicking this icon, we can also see that. Another way to see that is we can create a pivot table or matrix by clicking the matrix, using the ad manager to look at our data, clicking total sales, and then clicking our value in total sales and say, give me the maximum number. And voila, we can see Tina has the highest here in our pivot table or matrix, in our regular table, and in our line graph. So now we're going to start trying to answer some deeper questions. And the first thing we're going to do is look at an email that we've gotten from our boss. Here's the email we've gotten from our boss. Attention data analyst, there has been a serious error made in our sales database. The sales amount was listed as $9.99. However, The actual sales price is $19.99. Please update all historical data sets to reflect this. Yours truly, the Big Boss. Okay, that's a great task for us. So we know in our data, as our boss just highlighted, the sales amount is $9.99. Someone made a mistake. They forgot to put a 1 in front of it. So we need to fix that. To do this, we're going to go into our Edit Queries menu. So go up to Edit Queries, click Edit Queries. Our Edit Queries window will open, and we need to change the sales amount. So of course we could create a calculated column and add $10 to this and get $19.99. But we can also use the Find and Replace or Replace Values section here. So if we highlight our column, which is sales amount, click Find the Value. So we want to find $9.99. And we want to change that to $19.99. Now we have changed our amount. So I'm going to close and apply this new step. As you can see, we have our applied steps here. We replaced the value. So we changed our data model, and now we're going to apply those changes to our model. And we see if we click apply, it has updated. And now we're going to create a new line graph. So let's look at our date. And then we're going to look at total sales. And then we're going to look at a line graph with our total new sales amounts. Going down from, now we are at the quarter level, go down one more to the other level. So now if we do our new total daily sales amount, we can do that with a matrix, bring in the ad manager to see the person who has the highest total daily sales. We can click total sales, and then we can go down and we can choose maximum. So now we can see Tina still is the leader. In the next video, we're going to calculate profit and start making a dashboard. Thank you. Hi, in our last video, we calculated the max sales for each one of our ad manager. And in this video, we're going to calculate profit. First, let's go over to our data section, click data, and let's look at our data. Because this is a marketing campaign, we know we spent some money on ads to get conversions. We have a sales amount, and here was our total sales. We want to be able to say how much profit we had for each day minus our spend. So of course we can create a calculated column, but for our purposes here, let's create a new measure. Both the measure and the column do the same things at the moment, but some have advantages over other, and we'll see that in later videos. To create a calculated measure, we can click New Measure from the top Home tab. We can go over to the Fields menu and right-click and choose New Measure. So let's go up to the top and click New Measure. Calculated measures use functions just like in Excel. And in this function, we're going to use the sum as our main function. First, let's give it a name. We know we're calculating profit, so let's type profit. We want to take the sum, so we're going to use the sum function. So just type S, U, and then you can see your function list. There's a lot of DAX functions, and we're going to get into a lot of DAX a little later. So let's click sum. And what do we want the sum of? We want the sum of sales. So we know we have the sum of sales as our total sales column. And we can close that function off by closing our parentheses. That's the first part of our function, but we want the total sales minus our total spend column also. So minus, and then we use the sum function again, and then we click spend, how much we spent, close off that function, and now we have our new calculated measure that will populate over in the fields column. Right now it's just called measure, but when we commit, the name will change and update. Now you can see we have our profit calculated measure. So let's create a new visual. Here, let's make this a little smaller. Let's add a bar chart. And let's bring in date as our axis and profit as our value. And we can already see here where we've been profitable by year. We haven't had a very profitable year in 2016 and 2017. Let's look at our data a little bit differently per quarter. I'm going to be looking at this per quarter so we can see which quarter we had a down period. And to see this a little better, let's add labels by going over and clicking labels. And we know that this is profit, so we can highlight that and change this to a currency by clicking it, going over to our modeling tab, clicking format, clicking the currency icon, and going down to United States currency. So we can see that we lost, in which these parentheses says, we lost $6,000 in our quarter one of 2017. So now that we have our profit by quarter, we can also go back up to our table here and see which of our ad managers drove the most profit by just highlighting that matrix and clicking profit. So we can see that Jess had the most profit out of all our ad managers. Tina had the most sales. However, we know Jess drove the most profit. We're going to be making some deeper business decisions based on this information soon. We're going to be building a dashboard to see this data and make deeper decisions in our next video. There's no homework in this section. I want you to play around and get used to using all the things we've talked about in the videos, because we are about to build a dashboard. Thank you. Hi, welcome back to the course. We are going to start building a business intelligence dashboard. So let's just kind of recap where we are at the moment. We're able to produce visuals that show trends based on our time series. So we have total sales by time, and we can change the hierarchy on each level, so we can look at quarter or year all the way back down to the month level. We also have our profit by quarter here, which we created using a bar chart, and we can see the positive and negatives. We're going to style this even further. We've been able to create a matrix or pivot table that shows us the total max sales by ad manager and the profit they have created, and this is aggregated at max and then aggregated at sum. So you should feel very proud that you have this knowledge so far. From now we'll start building a dashboard with different elements. So there'll be elements on this page, and then we will slowly put them together and make them interactive. But for this tutorial, we're going to be looking at the geographic data or map data. So in our data, we have a column called state, which represents where we have targeted our ads. Power BI has 4 default map features, and for the most part, this will trigger automatically if you use geographic data. There's some styling that needs to be done, but we're going to do that in this video and some upcoming videos. So let's click state, and boom, already you have the default map. This map is Power BI's default map, where it shows the little dots that represent where our sales have occurred. However, we have a filled map, which you can see the states are filled. We have a shape map, which shows us essentially almost the same thing, but it's a little bit more detailed. And then we have the ArcGIS map. It takes a moment to load, and it also shows us a shape. For this particular video, let's go back to our default map by just going back to the visual and clicking it and looking at our options on how we can style this. So like all Power BI visuals, you can pull this out and change the size, but also we can change the size of these particular dots. If you go over to the Fields pane, we can see that we have a legend, latitude and longitude, if you have those fields that can be populated. We have size, and we can change the size of our dots by bringing in one of our aggregated measures, like total spend. So if we bring spend into that, you can see that the size of those circles increases. Now you're not limited to just the circle. This also has a legend, and let's see what happens when we bring in gender over the legend. We can actually see the different pie charts in that map. Of course, we can click our format. We can also change the size of the bubbles by going down to bubble and making them bigger or smaller. We can change data colors as usual. We can see, just like our other pie chart, we can use the categories to see the name of the particular bubble, so we can see which state is highlighted there. We can change the font and the background of that font and the transparency. There's a lot of styling that can go on in these maps. So let's look at the map styles, which right now we're looking at a version called Road. You can also zoom into this map and we can see very clearly what's going on. We can zoom out just by moving your mouse. However, we can change the theme or style by going to Arial, Dark, Light, and Grayscale, and Road. So it all depends on the type of style you want to have. Another great feature is the map controls, which has auto zoom or zoom buttons. So if I click on zoom buttons, you can see that you have this plus and minus that allows you to zoom. And we can take the auto zoom off. But I think it's easier to use your mouse to do zoom. We can also lock the aspect. So if we only wanted to look at the United States, which is all the data that we have, we can lock it. So let's go back and remove gender from this particular legend. So we are just looking at where this is occurring, which we use with category, and the size of those bubbles. And I don't like the way the categories are styled. I'm going to change it a bit. So I'm going to change my text by going to color under category. You can change it to any color you want. Let's try yellow, and let's change the transparency on the background. Let's take that all the way off, and let's see, maybe a dark gray, or even darker. Maybe we'll go to a black. For now, we can look at that and see the particular states, because we can always highlight and get the same information on our tooltip. We're going to be styling this map even further. And in the next tutorial, we're going to be looking at conditional formatting. For this homework, I would like you to be able to tell me which state was our most profitable state. There are many ways you can answer this. See you in the next video. Hi, welcome back to the course. I hope you have been able to answer the homework question. The question was, which state was the most profitable? And instead of taking you through the traditional way of answering this question, I wanted to introduce conditional formatting and answer this question in the process. So let's take a look at this map, and we can see that the bubbles indicate where we have the most spin. Of course, I can simply bring profit and replace spin and find the answer by viewing the biggest bubble. But sometimes you want to have a conditional formatting, which changes the color to indicate volume or a rule set. Before we answer this question, so if we highlight the map and we go over to our data colors, we can see there is 3 small dots here. You can look at the ellipsis, click it, and you can see there is a function symbol with conditional formatting. Click that, and then you have this option. It says data colors, and we want to format by a color scale based on what we're looking for is to see the profit based on these colors. So instead of state, I can click that caret and move down to profit. And you can see that we have a minimum value and a maximum value. The default formatting is set at 0. The minimum is red and the highest value is green. So if we initiate that, we should see changes in colors of our profit. So we can see the intensity of the colors here, and of course that's something we can format. We can see that the whole region here is really less profitable. We can see a dark green here. We can see unprofitable here, and we can see very profitable there, just indicated by the colors. Now, I'm highlighting the tooltip, but let's bring in profit to our tooltip. So I simply go to the Fields pane, click Fields, select Profit, drag it into Tooltips to help answer our question. So we can see that the profit was $1,048.44 for California, which is green, but our greenest value is Oregon. Our profit is $1,516.88, which is our highest profit. We can also apply conditional formatting to other visuals in the same manner. Of course, we can see profit by quarter here, and we can see anything that falls under 0 is unprofitable. So we simply highlight that visual, go back over to our Format pane, clicking the paintbrush, go to Data Colors, find the ellipsis by moving over to the right, clicking Conditional Formatting. What do we want to format by? Not the hierarchy. We want to format by profit. Now you can see this option here that says diverging. Diverging does exactly what it does. It gives us a middle value. So let's use that for our profit on this visual. And we can see that it's a bit too colorful and not that distinctive. To change that, we go back by clicking the ellipsis, click Conditional Formatting, take off this, and I'm going to make a deeper red and a lighter green. Now we can see that our profit is very dark here, dark red, which indicates that it's very negative. Of course, you can go and optimize those colors. I'm going to go back because I actually like a lighter red. Remember that you can also change your themes, so now it's clearer. It matches this value. In addition, we can look at our tables and add a type of formatting. Highlight your table, move over to your Format tab, and then you can see in the table they have the conditional formatting for you as an option. Click the caret and you have your options. We can use a bar graph, font colors, data bars, or icons. Let's look at profit instead of max total. So you can change the profit. We can change the background colors. We can change the font color. And we can change the data bars and even icons. For this example, I'm going to leave it as icons. Remember that we are advancing towards creating a very stunning visual that's interactive and is going to provide business intelligence. If you haven't gotten all 4 of these visuals yet, try to recreate them, and we're going to keep moving until we have a complete report. See you in the next video. We are progressing through to build our report, but before, let's talk about the difference between segmentation and filtering in Power BI. There's a lot of interactivity in Power BI, and we're going to be utilizing this in our final report. However, let's look at how this report is already set for interactivity. Every visual, because it's working off a central data model, will be able to segment other visuals just by clicking them. For example, if we look at our profit by year visual, if I click 2015 quarter 4, it will filter the rest of the visuals. That segments the information to show you what is represented for that time period. If we go to the map and we click California, it will also segment the data within this visual. You can see that it's segmented. Also, everything is. Now we have Jess, our ad manager. If we click her name, we can also segment the visuals. A good way to give your user better control if they are not aware of how to click the visuals. So we can see that we can segment this visual. However, using an explicit filter will not segment, it will simply filter. So let's make this map a little smaller. Let's bring in a filter for gender. So I'm going to just go over to the fields, click gender, and I'm going to click on the slicer. Now if I click gender, you can see that the visuals are actually filtered. Now we can also, of course, bring in a visual. So if I go to gender again, and I bring that into the report pane, and I click a pie chart, and I bring in shares, I can filter or segment the visual the same way. This is not sometimes the best user experience because the user may not know that they can do this. So it's sometimes better to use filters. But now you may want, a user may be wanting to, see something on your, and may click it and like, wow, it's being filtered. But you may want to turn that off, and you can see that it's also segmented here. So if we click a visual, a format under visual tools option will appear. If you go up, you can see the visual tools is highlighted. I click format, and then I go over to edit interactions. And it says change how a visual interacts when data points are selected while in edit mode. So if I click this, we can see that we have new icons over each visual. This means that this visual, any of the visuals, including the slicer, can be altered. So for example, let's click none under our profit by year chart, and let's see what happens when I click this visual. It doesn't segment or filter that visual. The same goes for if I click this filter, which is now a slicer, and I go over to our line chart, which is total sales by year, and click none, and you can see that now it is not filtered. And this applies to any of the visuals. So you would click the visual and you would be able to edit your interaction between all of the other visuals. We're going to be utilizing this in the coming reports. Thank you. Welcome back. We're at the moment of truth where we're going to build our dashboard, our executive level dashboard, and we're going to be using some of the theories that we discussed in the previous video. So let's get started. The first thing you want to be able to do when your manager or the VP comes in, he sees his vital KPIs, the KPIs that are absolutely critical for his business. So I want to put those on the board right now. So we're going to use the card visual because we know what would be critical to a VP is how much money he's spending, what kind of profit he's generating, and overall sales. I'm going to pull some of these visuals down, and if we can always highlight all the visuals by pressing Control A, and then we go up to the ellipsis and pull it down. And we're going to make all of these smaller in a minute. First, I'm going to go over to the visualizations and click the card visual. You'll see it populate on your report pane, and then I'm going to add profit. So there's our profit number there, and I want that front and center at the top. Then I'm going to copy that, and then with Control C, and then press Control V to paste it. And then I'm going to add, instead of profit, which it's on now, I'm going to go down to our calculated column, pull that over the field where we have profit located, and replace it with total sales. Then I'm going to copy, Control V, and paste, Control C, Control V. And then now, what do we need? We need our spend. So I'm going to go back over to the fields, drag spent over the field, and now we have those three. And instead of spent, because we don't know when he's going to be looking at this, we're going to change this by double clicking the name of our field and change it from spent to spend. And now we see that. Now we're going to have these at the top of our visual. But first, let's make some changes and think about what our VP or manager would like to see. So of course we know from our theory we only want the most critical metrics. And of course we have total sales, which is great. And we, in 1 second, he can see that the trend. But of course, there's a couple campaigns that are running at the moment, and he probably would like to see those in one glance. So let's add campaign by going over and dropping it in that visual. And now we have all the campaign spend trended out. Next, let's take a look at our profit over time visual. This is a great visual. We can see where we've had profit and where we're at a loss. But there's one thing with this visual that is over complicated, and it's the number of years and dates. This is too much. So let's change that. Let's highlight that visual, go over to the paintbrush, which represents format, and we want to deal with this x-axis. So go back over, look at x-axis. Of course we can turn it on and off, but of course that's going to be difficult to discern which quarter we're in. But if we click that and we go down to this options, we can see that there's a minimum category, there's a maximum width, but what we're concerned with is concatenating the labels. So right now we're adding year and quarter, year and quarter. That is too much, so we're going to turn that off. And now we have the year at the bottom and the quarters here. It's very easy to see. Now we have that visual clean. Let's go over to our map. Although this is a great map, I think looking at the size of the circles is great, but it doesn't give us a full picture, and plus it's probably not going to look very good in our map. So I'm going to go over, and our manager is probably only concerned with spend and profit, and he can highlight these just by looking at the color. So let's go over and click that map and change that map until our shape map. And boom, now we have our spend and profit. And as you can see, we changed spend here in that visual. We're going to have to change it here also by going over to color saturation and clicking on the field and writing spend. And now it's fixed. All right, so now it's kind of taking shape where we want it to be. We have our sales over time, our profit over time, where we're making money, where we're losing money, and who is making money for us. This is already shaping up to be a great executive level dashboard. But now let's put some controls in. All right, so let's make these visuals smaller because we want to make some room, and we want to what? Maximize our white space. We know we don't need that map that big, so I'm just making these smaller, and you can see that this is right there. Now all our information is right front and center. Now we can start beautifying this dashboard. Although we can see the ad managers and the campaigns here, your VP or your executive might want to slice this data by those top levels. So let's bring in what we call slicers. So under the visualization pane, you can click slicer, and we're going to bring in first, we're going to bring in who is making this money for us. So we just bring in our ad manager because that's who your executive is probably paying. And then now let's bring in another slicer. So we click on the white space, click slicer again. And of course, let's bring in campaign because this is something an executive would want to know. And now we can slice all that information by campaign or by the ad manager. So now let's go into the second part of this. So I'm going to stop that video right now, and then we're going to go into part 2, which is going to be adding backgrounds. See you in the next video. Let's continue styling this dashboard. Now that we have our slicers, the last slicer we want to add to give our executive control is the date slicer. And we can add that by just clicking the slicer and clicking the date. And now we have this control. Now we have this option, we have this white space. And we can style this white space in a way we want. So if we go over to the paintbrush and we click on an empty part of our report pane, you can see you have options to change the page size, the alignment, wallpaper, and the background, and also some page information. So if I, for example, if I went and change the background color, it's at a transparency of 100%, but if I pull that down, boom, you have a black dashboard. And that actually looks a little cool, but we're gonna do something a little different for this dashboard. So we're gonna leave it white for the moment, but I want to focus the executive's eyes into just this area and have our filters separate. So we're gonna use some shapes to do that. The first thing you're gonna do is go over to shape, get a rectangle, and you can see that rectangle is brought into your report pane. And I'm going to drag that rectangle over to the corner and drag it over my visuals for the moment. And you can't see the visuals unless you pull out. And we can see some and we can't see others. That's because this has its own formatting. If we go over and click this shape and we see format shape over in our format section, and we have the option to fill it, and we have the option to change the line and the transparencies. It's still blocking some things. So we can make this move from being in the front to the back. So click the shape, go over to format, and then it says here under format, send back or send backward. So I want it to send it back. Now we can see all the visuals, and I'm just gonna kind of make those a little bit smaller so they can fit, they can fit into our little report space that we're making. And don't worry, it doesn't look very good at the moment, but we're gonna make this look good. Now that we have everything in this little window, I'm gonna change the color to white. So let's click that, and I'm gonna go over to fill, I'm gonna go over to white. And now we have all our visuals within this little reporting window that we have. And everything still works the same if we filter, but it focuses our attention there. The next thing I want to do is I want to give this kind of like a 3D effect. I'm going to get another rectangle by clicking on this and Control C and Control V. Now I have two of these. And you can see that one is there and one is behind it. So I'm going to make this one slightly bigger. And instead of that, I'm going to make that one black. And I'm going to send that one all the way back. And now you even have more focus. And I'm going to get rid of these lines by going over to format and putting the line at 0. And the same thing for this shape. Go over, go to line, put the line at 0. Now you kind of have even more of an effect when you look at your dashboard. And let me unfilter that for a moment so we can see everything. Everything is right there in our executive's face. And wow, we even have this section over here where it's clear that he can or she can go over and filter. We're going to do even more styling. And obviously we need to make this one a little bit taller because it doesn't look very good. You know, you have to fiddle around with these things until you get kind of the right information there. Let me pull this back down. Go back up. All right. And we'll deal with the titles in a minute. Now we know that we can also have wallpaper because now we have our report window and it's very clear. Let's go over to the format. Click a white space so you make sure you're dealing with the total report pane. And let's go to, not background, but we want to go to our wallpaper. And I'm going to add an image that I have saved for a background. So I'm going to go to add image. And then I'm going to take this background. You can't see it, but it's actually behind this. And it says image fit is normal, and we can see the wallpaper I have there. But I'm going to go over and put fill, and boom, now you have a background that is kind of cool to look at. We can't see our slicers, and we don't yet have a title. And I'm going to, now that we have like this in equal space, I'm going to bring this slicer over here. Now we have something that's looking like something we can be proud of. But let's change the type of slicers we have. Go over to Format and click General. Instead of vertical, let's do horizontal. And boom, we have a better looking slicer. And this is horizontal, just means we can change it to a horizontal orientation like that. But I kind of like it this way. Let's do the same here by clicking our slicer, going over to Format, going to General, choosing horizontal, and boom. This is already looking kind of cool. Let's make our black a little bit smaller. And I'm going to change this where I can see these particular dates. And all you're going to do is go to Formatting, like we always do. And then here we want to look at date inputs instead of black. Let's make those clear and white. Right. Let's go over and give it a title also. So to give it a title, all we need to do is add a text box, which I clicked, and I'm going to write, and you can't see it, so I'm going to highlight that text. Sometimes it's better to do this before you put in your wallpaper. I'm going to click this A to change the text color, and I'm going to change the text size to something very big. That's a little too big, but let's drag it over and see what it looks like. Now we have Executive Dashboard. I can highlight that, and then I can change it to where it's centered. And we have an Executive Dashboard that we can filter on the time period. For your homework, I want you to style this even further with your options in the Format pane, and let's see where we are when you come back. Welcome back. I hope you've had fun customizing your dashboards. If you take an immediate look at my dashboard, I think you'll start to see some subtle differences from our previous dashboard. As you see, I changed my text for my key metrics at the top, and I also changed the color a bit. And how can I do that? You can easily do that by highlighting what you would like to change, the visual, going over to Format. We know this is a data label. I changed the color to gray. I have the size at 21 point, and I changed it to Arial Black. And I did that to each one of those. And you can do that by highlighting all three of them, and you can change that also. You're not limited to doing it one by one because it's actually the same type of visual. I made my colors a little bit more subtle here because I didn't want them to interfere with the red and green colors. You may have done something different. I centered all my titles. And how do you center your titles? You go back over, highlight the visual, you go back over to the Format option, you go down to Title, and then they have the Alignment option. And you can align all those. And I aligned all mine to be at the center. I added a text box. Very similar to what we did for the title, you can add a text box and give instructions to your user. So I simply went to text box at the top ribbon, click that, and type some information in. But I added an image. How did I get the image in? Very easily. The same way we brought a shape in to create this kind of 3D effect, you can go to images and bring an image in. So if your company has a logo, it's always good to put the logo on your dashboard. So for fun, let's get a logo. I have a YouTube logo. And you want to search for logos or images if you're doing this from Google without a background that are transparent. So I'm just going to add this logo for fun. But of course, you can add your own company's logo. So our next task, now that we have a very nice dashboard that you can be proud of, and I want you to give yourself a pat on the back to say that you are a Power BI user. So you can tack that on your resume. But you can say you made executive level dashboards, you know how to do interactions, you've used DAX, you can make interactive visuals. But the next thing we're going to do, we're going to be updating the dashboard, which is a task that you will be asked multiple times, because right now we only have 2015, 2016, and 2017. So we want the last 2 years of data to be updated here, and we're going to learn about that. And we also are going to talk a little bit about drill throughs. Continue customizing your dashboard. Have a lot of fun. I'll see you in the next video. Hi, welcome back. Now we're going to be talking about creating more detail and using the drill through option. So the first thing I did was I labeled this report as executive down here. And to change the name, all you need to do is double click and write your name in. I'm going to add a new report by clicking the new page. So now we have a blank space, which is a report, but it's blank at the moment. So my task is to create a report that links from here to here. And I want this to be our operational dashboard. So I'm going to double click the name of the report and then write in operational. Now that we have that, we want to be able to link some detail from here, one of the visuals, to our operational dashboard. So let's talk about states. Maybe you want more detail on states. So you can just simply go over and let's create a very simple dashboard. We know we can create something amazing, but let's just do something very easily. So we're going to click state, and we're not going to use the map because we know we already have that. So click state, and I'm going to use total sales, and I'm going to turn that into pie chart. And if you notice, one thing that we need to fix is this. This is not the correct main. It's actually spelled wrong. We're going to fix that later because now we know it's not highlighted here. And that's the beauty of getting more detail. So now that we have a pie chart, and let's change it to a donut chart. It looks a little bit better. And we can see California has our total sales. And matter of fact, let's change that to spend because we already have our total sales on the other dashboard. So let's get our labels correct. So we're going to go down, click the visual, go down to your format, go to label, label style, category. I want the category and the percentage. Now we have that, and now let's maybe click a bar chart with total shares per state, and then we'll use the stacked bar graph, and then let's split that up by gender. And wow, we can see that females were only dominated here. Let's add some labels. Go over to your tab, add labels. Now we have two visuals. And now let's add a table with all our metrics, because we will know this is a operational dashboard, so we can have a lot more metrics to deal with because it's a drill down. So state, and the first thing that's going to happen is the map, and then this. So I'm going to change it into a table. I'm going to move those up, and then I'm going to just populate this with metrics, impressions, clicks, spend, shares, profit, sales amount. Now we have all our data in that table. And let's make the table kind of cool, so we can go to style by clicking the format, go to style, go to default, and once you click default, you can change the styles. I'm going to use bold header and flashy rows. So now we have like a little dashboard that we have. It's not terribly impressive, and because we know we can make an amazing dashboard, but we're doing this just to highlight how we drill through. So our task is to go from our executive page to our operational page, and we do that with drill through. So click the white part of your report, and then I want you to go over to the value section, and then under that you can see we have drill through. And what drill through allows is exactly what we want, to drill from a higher level of granularity to a lower level and more detail level of granularity. So let's see what it says. If you highlight it by moving your mouse over it, it says allows this page to be used by other reports as a drill through target. So I'm going to turn on that option. The next thing we need to do is tell it what are we going to use to drill through. So we know we built a lot of different visuals around state, so we're going to use state to drill through. So we bring the state dimension on, and it adds this icon in the top level, which means you can go back after we drill through on that. And if I click that white spot, we can see that our cross report is on and state is also on, and we can click which states we want to show here to filter. So let's go back over to our executive report, and we have our states here. So if I click one of those states and right click it, look what it has. Drill through. Drill through to where? To our operational dashboard, and watch the magic. Boom. Now why does it look different? Because look at the option on the far right. We kept our filters on, and we can see that the filters are, we highlighted Texas, and boom, we have Texas. Now we can control click, right click, to go back. Now let's go back to our operational dashboard, and let me show you something very interesting. So if I turn the filters off here by clicking the eraser button, let's do something that's kind of cool. So I'm going to move this over, and then I'm going to use the card visual. So I'm going to click card, and we know that we are using state as our first state as I drill through visual. So I'm going to click state on this, and then it's going to tell me California. Why does it choose California? Because it's going in alphabetical order, and it's the first value in the list of states. So I'm going to leave that as California. I'm going to go back over to our executive dashboard. Let's highlight New York, right click it, go down to drill through, operational. Boom! Now we have the name, so we can use a dynamic title for our drill through, and we can drill on all of these particular things and make a very interesting dashboard. So I'm going to go back over. I'm going to eliminate that filter. Your task for your homework is to create an operational dashboard, something that you can be proud of. Now, in the next video, we're going to be uploading data. We're going to be fixing our main issue, because it's not main, it's spelled wrong. But I'm going to leave it up to you guys to make this a dashboard, an operational dashboard, any way you like. You have a lot of skills now. I'm looking forward to seeing some of your dashboards. You can email me. I'll leave my email in the section. See you in the next video. Welcome back to the course. This is the final part of the course. We are going to be updating the dashboard, and we're going to do that through edit queries, and we also are going to be fixing a slight issue where we are not showing Maine on the map due to a misspelling. So let's go to edit queries in the top left of the ribbon. Click edit queries. That's going to bring our edit queries window up. We can see our data set. So the first thing we want to do is gravitate over to the states. We know that we have Maine, and let's click the down caret just to take a look at the spelling. So we can see it's the word Maine instead of the name of the state. So what we're going to do is find and replace that value like we did before. We go to replace values at the top ribbon, click that. We're going to replace Maine with the correct spelling. Now that we've corrected the spelling, you can see those steps being recorded, and we have the replace value step. You can always see which value was being replaced by double clicking the gear icon, and you can see the step that was taken. Let's close and apply this and see if that fixed our issue. We should see the state populate on the map. Maine. So we can see that that's worked. Now we need to update this data. It's 2020 and we have 2020's numbers. So we want to go and add a new data set. Let's go back to the Edit Queries menu, but of course we could just get that data. It's 2020 and we want to add the previous year's data set. We can do that by going back to Get Data, which we did to bring in the initial data set. I'm going to be using a CSV. I'm going to click that. My data is there. On the desktop. And I'm going to be bringing in that new data set. Now we can see the preview of that new Facebook data. Instead of loading that, I'm going to go over. Let's load that data. Now we have our new data set loaded, but that has not changed our initial data. Why? Because now we have two data sets here and they are not connected. They are just two separate data sets. If we migrate over to the model in the left corner, you can see that we have two independent tables that are not connected. So I'm going to go back to our view and click Edit Queries, and we're going to append these two tables. If you migrate over to the right top corner, you can see Append. And what Append does is allow us to smash or stack those two data sets. We can append a query as a new query, but I just want to add this new data under our original data source. So I'm clicked on our original data source. I'm going to append queries, not as new because I don't want a new data set. I just want to add that data set to it. Now we can add the table by clicking the caret. We're currently on the Facebook campaign data, but we want the new data added to it. So we click OK. You can see in the applied steps that we have appended that query. Now I'm going to click Close and Apply, and we should see that data update and give us the new years. So if you just wanted to see the last 2 years worth of data, we can go over to our slider and just slide it and see what the last 2 years worth of data gave us. We can also just pull that back out. I hope that helps. Thank you, and thank you for participating in the course.